Hello everyone, Yamato here. It's the end of 2025, so happy almost New Year, or maybe Happy New Year by the time I actually get this out. I'm gonna try and do a rush on it, but we'll see where we get. It has been a very eventful year for me. I can't speak for Alex, but on this half of the Keepers of the Clow podcast, even though we haven't managed to put any episodes out, I've been pretty busy. It's been an interesting year of ups and downs, so why don't we go ahead and go through some of the things that have kept me busy and away from the editing table. Okay, so let's start month by month. January, there was nothing really to report. The year for me really kind of started in February, where I had the beginning of my health problems, and I'll get to the specifics of what it was exactly when we get to it, but the point is that about halfway through February, I was at work and was suddenly hit with just the most intense pain in my stomach that I have ever felt. And rather than be a responsible person and go to a hospital like I really should have, I'm an American. And even though I have insurance, I've kind of been conditioned to not go to the doctor. So, this wasn't really a good decision for me, but I was knocked out for most of a weekend. And boy, that was just really uncomfortable. Do not recommend. Urgent cares exist for a reason. You should probably do that. But anyway, on a lighter note, once that was done, a week or two later, I went to ZenkaiCon in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where I got to meet Kari Wahlgren and get a poster signed. Kari is the voice of Sakura in the Sealed Card movie, the English dub. You might recognize Kari Wahlgren as just so many female characters in the anime, but I also knew her as Kagami from Lucky Star, and she's basically using the same voice in that one. ZenkaiCon is a really nice convention, and I would actually like to maybe spend a little more time there. I actually made it a day trip because it's about 2 hours to drive away from me, but yeah, I would do this one again. It's, if you're in the Lancaster, Pennsylvania area, it's a good one. They usually have a decent lineup of characters and guests. So in March, I went to the doctor and I got looked at, but they couldn't exactly figure out what was wrong with me, but I did get an ultrasound, which is a new experience for me. Then at the end of March, my sister came down and we both went to GalaxyCon in Richmond. This was a much bigger con than ZenkaiCon, but again, it's a good show, really big layout, a lot of good cosplay, and I got to meet Monica Rial. She is the voice of Sakura in the Clear Card English dub. She's also the voice of, like Kari Wahlgren, she's the voice of many female characters in the anime right now. Off the top of my head, I know that she's Bulma, she's Suyu, and she's Stocking in Panty and Stocking. I got her to also sign a poster, and the other thing that I would just say about this convention was that I had thrown my back out right before this convention, and I could barely stand up. I'll show this photo. Just know that I was in complete agony while taking this photo and being at this con. But again, my sister came all the way down from Connecticut. I was not going to bail on her. So yeah, I pushed through it. I got through it on basically Tylenol and willpower. I would love to go to GalaxyCon again when I was not in excruciating pain. Also, most of the Has-Been and Hell of a Boss crew were there, including Vizipop. I only had the stamina to stand in line for a couple of them. Like I said, I would like to do this show when I'm not in excruciating pain. Moving on to April. April is my birthday, and otherwise, I don't think there was anything really going on there. By this point, I was actually focusing really hard on losing weight, though. I was doing a ketogenic diet, and by this point, I lost about 40 pounds. So, was doing really well there. Overall, in this year, that's the other thing that I was really focusing on this year. Starting in February when I had the initial health issue, I got serious about losing weight, and in total this year, I dropped about 90 pounds, but then Christmas happened, I put a little bit of it back on. But, once I get this out, we're definitely hopping back in so that I can finish the job. I'll just see if I can find a picture of me at the beginning of the year and a picture of me later in the year. I made quite a bit of progress, and to be entirely honest, being on an intense diet like that does require a lot of focus, and that's partially a big reason why I was having trouble working on just about anything else. Moving on to May. Well, we figured out what the problem was. I got another ultrasound, and they were finally able to see what was wrong with me because I'd, by this point, lost about 40 or 50 pounds. I had gallstones. I had just completely ruined my gallbladder. Now, it wasn't just because of my terrible diet and lifestyle. It's also apparently just a hereditary issue. My dad had them, and my grandfather had them. So, just part of the family tradition of just completely ruining your gallbladder. Fortunately, that was something that is fixable, and I would go in to have that surgery in August. And since then, totally fine. I don't really recommend having gallstones, but if you do have it, I can vouch that it is a 100% like easy fix, like complete 180 on quality of life. So much better once that thing was popped out. And I have almost no surgical scar. It's great. Modern medicine. It's amazing. Moving on to June, we went to KamehaCon in Atlantic City, New Jersey. I got to meet Brian Drummond, who is the voice of Aiden, i.e. Sakura's father. He's also the voice of Mr. Terada. Great guy. As the first Card Captors actor that I got to actually talk to, I got to talk to him a little bit about the show. Fun tidbit I walked away from him with is the fact that he actually remembered this show, and he remembered it because it's one of the few voice acting roles he's ever gotten to do where he just got to use his normal voice. To give you some perspective, Brian Drummond is a seasoned voice actor. He's been around for a long time. He is actually the voice of the Vegeta who goes over 9,000. Poor guy at the con had to do that line many, many times. All right, moving on to July, and here is the big highlight of the year. The thing that was the biggest deal to me, and up to this point, since I had been suffering with the gallbladder thing, I was really, really worried that something would go wrong and I would miss this event. But the event ended up happening. I made it. It was the Uncanny Experience in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This was a very interesting show. It's a lot smaller than your typical convention, and it's also obviously a lot more focused. The Uncanny Experience is an X-Men sort of convention, sort of LARP kind of thing. They rent out this very nice building in the middle of Minneapolis called the Minneapolis Club, and they convert it into the Xavier Mansion. They had some interesting talent who showed up to there. They had a few of the writers who worked on the original animated series. They had the animator who did the designs for X-Men Evolution, and of course, they had a few talented voice actors show up, including show favorite Maggie O'Hara, the voice of Madison. I was potentially the only person in this whole place that was there for Madison, and that was fine. I got to be the weirdo who hovered around her table to talk about card captors instead of X-Men. Now, to go into a little bit of detail about my personal experience on this show, I actually shelled out the big bucks for the Omega level ticket. This was a very expensive ticket on top of the hotel and on top of the plane tickets. This is probably the most amount of money I've ever dumped on a show where I didn't actually buy any stuff from the dealer's alley. The only other money I spent was getting signatures from Maggie, of course. But one of the things that came with this ticket was a VIP dinner on Friday night where you got to hang out with the other Omegas and, of course, the talent who was brought into the show. So that was the first time I got to meet Maggie. She's very friendly. I have to admit that I was kind of creepy, I'm sure, just kind of hovering around the tables, being like, oh man, I see her. She was there talking with, I believe her name's Rachel, the voice of Rogue from X-Men Evolution. And I was just playing, man, do I get to approach them? What do I do? And she was... Bless her, she was nice enough to approach me first. So thank you, Maggie, for breaking the ice there, because I was caving to my own nerves. But we got to talk a little bit at that party. That was good. The next day, I got to visit her at her table. The ticket would have given me front of the line access, but to be entirely honest, the artist room, the autograph room was so unpopulated that I was able to just kind of come and go from her table and get little snippets of conversation with her all through the day. It was very casual, and once that first interaction was done, the ice was broken and it was a lot easier to talk to her. And then the other thing, and this is the big reason why I bought the Omega ticket in the first place, is that one of the things that was offered with the Omega ticket was a 10-minute private one-on-one with the guest of your choosing. So naturally, I sat down with Maggie, and with a voice recorder in hand, I actually had myself a little impromptu interview. And then, in addition to that, Maggie also gave me the opportunity to interview her later once I got home from Minneapolis. So we had a Skype call, and we got to have that segment as well. But the point is that this was amazing, okay? It was completely worth the money I put in. It was 1,000% better than I ever could have hoped. Maggie was great. Maggie, if you ever hear this, thank you so much for being so gracious to me. I'm sorry I occupied so much of your time, but it was such an amazing treat to meet you. Moving into August, I already talked about how I had the surgery. I had the surgery on a Tuesday. I was back at work the following Monday. It's, like I said, modern medicine. Really good. September, moving on to the final con of the year and the one where I got the most meet and greets out of it. This was Toon Fusion in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It's like I went there to meet the boys, Tony Sampson, who voiced Tori, Sam Vincent, who voiced Julian, and Matt Hill, who voiced Kiro. You may also recognize these names as the Ed Boys from Ed, Edd and Eddy, and, well, most of the advertising definitely made it clear that that's what they were there for, but all three of them were absolutely enthusiastic and remembered their work on Cardcaptors. And I really wish I had recorded the panel where the three of them were up on stage talking about their acting careers, because they made some Cardcaptor comments that, like I said, I wish I had recorded, and I think I'm going to try and put some feelers, because someone had to have recorded it, and if I can find it, I'm going to go ahead and put it here, but otherwise I'll probably just Instagram it later. Some fun things to say about them. Well, I didn't really have much to say with Tony. He was the last one that I met, actually. Sam Vincent was interesting. He asked me a couple of questions about the show, confirmed some of the details about Julian's character in the dub that he was vaguely aware of, but surprisingly enough, in 20 years since doing that role, apparently he'd not gotten too much of the details of. And also, this was just an interesting coincidence. I really thought I was going to be maybe the only person to be there for Cardcaptors, but the girl right behind me had a Clow book in her hand. So, yeah, okay. Right behind me in line for Sam, by the way. So, this wasn't even for Matt Hill, who was next to him. Matt Hill was a good one to talk to. He had some interesting insights to talk about with the show. Actually, one of his prints was even Sakura and Kiro one. I think he may have been the only one. No, never mind. Sam definitely had UA stuff on his table too. Anyway, Matt Hill. The most interesting thing I learned from him was that apparently part of the direction for his voice for Kiro was a Joe Pesci impression, which implies to me, and I wish we could find this, is that there are some outtakes of Matt Hill doing the voice of Kiro as a Joe Pesci impression where he definitely drops some swears. And that is just the sort of thing that I would want to hear. Toon Fusion also had a lot of other talent, like Johnny Young Bosch, a bunch of members of Has Been Hotel Season 2, and one of them that I almost walked away without getting was Michelle Ruff, the English voice of Tomoyo in the Sealed Card movie. So now I have Sakura and Tomoyo from the Sealed Card. Back in February, I actually had Kari sign the Sealed Card DVD, and to be entirely honest, if I had realized that Michelle Ruff was going to be a Toon Fusion, I might have brought that DVD with me, but I've decided really going forward that I'm going to have all the actors just sign these Shiki Sheep boards that I have been showing throughout the video, and these are going to be my main thing for getting signed at this point. I'm not really that big a fan of having DVDs signed now that I really have it. Like, I'm saving the posters for Sakura's, and everyone else is getting a signing board, and the Cardcaptors characters are also getting the Cardcaptors Topps cards that go with them. The rest of the year has largely been affected by recent American politics. Unfortunately, due to the nature of my job, the shutdown in October affected me directly, and I was out of work for a little bit. I didn't lose my job, I just couldn't go to my job. And then once the government was open again and my job was back, I had to work a lot of time to make up for it because I did not want to use my PTO to cover all that time. So due to the nature of my job, I still owed all of those hours that I wasn't working because the job wasn't open for me to work. It's very complicated, and the point is that I've just been working a lot of 12-hour shifts between November and December, and that's really kept me just low energy and drained for the rest of the year. But now everything is good. Everything is ideally back to normal, and I'm talking with some people who know editors or who are editors, and I think we'll be able to get back on track here soon. So that's been 2025 for me. Like I said in my update in October, I'm sorry that this break in episodes lasted as long as it did. I'm hoping for 2026 not only to get all of the backlog of episodes edited and posted, but also that we will get new episodes. We have about, I think, 8 that have been recorded and just need to be edited and put out there. And then me and Alex will be sitting down to do more episodes. It's been a busy year for him as well. I really ought to know more about him and Moonstar, but I'll let him talk about that on his socials. And speaking of which, let me plug the socials here. You can follow updates for me on my Instagram. That's CollectorYamato. I'm going to put it on the screen. I do have a Twitter for me, but I don't really use it. There is a CollectorYamato Tumblr that I'm planning to get back into, and there is a Keepers of the Clow Facebook group. All of these links will be in the description. I need to get better about doing the socials as we get back into this, because I want this hiatus to end. There's a lot of card captors left to go. Over the course of this year, I also did go ahead and jump forward to watch a bunch of the series, partially inspired by the fact that Maggie was talking about stuff in card captors that she remembered doing that I hadn't gotten to yet because I hadn't gotten that far in, and I wanted to be better informed in case that happened again. So I've gotten through the entire Clow arc of card captors. I haven't gotten back to finish the Sakura arc, but I will probably sit down and do that at some point. I've just been kind of waiting to get back into doing recording. Thanks everyone for sticking with us through this 2025 break. I hope to bring you a lot more content in 2026. Happy holidays, happy new year. I'll see you all in the next video. Have a good night.